Okay, so way back in lesson, I think 3-4, we talked about X and Y intercepts. And when we were there, we talked about the fact that you guys didn't know how to do X-intercepts of quadratics or exponentials. Well, in Unit 5 and 6, we really learned how to find the X-intercepts of quadratics, because all those zeros and roots and all those different ways we solved quadratics were basically just the X-intercepts. Now, you know how to solve exponentials for X, at least simple ones. So that means that we can find the X-intercept of simple exponential functions. So all we would have to do, well, first let's fill in these notes. One possible application for the skill of solving these would be to find an X-intercept. You know the X-intercept happens when the function crosses the X-axis. This is also the point when your Y value is 0. So, in order to find the X-intercept algebraically, I'm finally teaching you how to do it, you will simply plug 0 in for your Y. Alright, so this is going to be very similar to what I did in the previous video, except this time I have an f of x. I've got to set that equal to 0, because remember, f of x is just y. And now I can solve this. I've got to get that 3 to the x by itself, so I'm going to add 9 to both sides. And I get 9 equals 3 to the x. And then I just have to think, what could x be? X has got to be 2 because 3 to the second power is equal to 9. So x equals 2. So that means that my x-intercept for this particular function is at the point 2, 0. If you went to Desmos and graphed this right now, you would get an answer, or you would see that it crosses the x-axis at 2, 0. All right, the x-intercept for this one, I'm going to have 0 equals 5 times 3 to the x. So first I'm going to get rid of that 5, and I get 0 equals 3 to the x, and then I have to think, what could that x be? Well, 3 to the 0 power is probably what everybody's thinking, except when I put 3 to the 0 power in, what is anything to the 0 power? It is 1. So it's not that. So I'm going to try something negative maybe, 3 raised to the negative 1, except we've learned before that negative exponents just turn it into a fraction, so that's 1/3. So then I start to panic a little bit, so I decide to go to Desmos. So let me pull up Desmos really quick. Okay, so in Desmos, I am going to type this function in, and it said f of x equals 5 times 3 raised to the x power. And remember, I'm looking for what is my x-intercept. Well, we should have thought of this before. There's an asymptote at 0. This thing isn't going to have an x-intercept because it never crosses that x-axis. And I should have known that because when I look at this function, there's no +1 or -3, or there's no nothing to shift it so that it crosses that x-axis. Remember, the parent function of exponentials is always going to have an asymptote at 0, at y equals 0. So for this one, what I would have to write is I would have to say that there is no solution. Or you could say there's no x-intercept. It never crosses the x-axis, so it doesn't apply to this problem. All right, so you guys go ahead and try this one, and then you can move on to the practice. Hopefully you'll find this super easy, and we'll be able to get to the mastery check today, and then it'll be test time. Bye, guys. Good luck.